Hello and welcome to Life in the Mind. I'm Maurice Spear and Joey is unwell today, so it's just me and our guest. Welcoming back Jake Bussell.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to have you back with us after
Nice
a
to be
long,
here.
long period of time.
Yes.
It's been so long. I'm not very good at playing the pretense that we've got you back in after a few weeks. It's
Yes,
like, it's
yeah.
been 10 minutes. But yes, it has. It's been a long time and that would be so impractical. Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, we are going to chat around science.
Yes, science. In
Yeah, your research.
Yeah.
In both a bit about your masters.
Yeah.
To start with, what was your masters in?
So my master's degree was a thing called computational neuroscience and cognitive robotics.
Yes.
Which is a mouthful, but it was basically a degree program that encapsulated a lot of different things, from kind of mathematical modeling to AI and bionic robot arms and things. I didn't do most of that. I just stuck with the neuroscience.
Yeah.
But for my project, I looked at modeling the relationship between AQ10 scores, which is a short form of the autism spectrum quotient, for any of your listeners who aren't aware.
Yeah, which is the kind of preliminary assessment to kind of screen for potential autism.
Yes, exactly.
Before diagnosis.
Yeah. So I was looking at relationships between that and performance on a task called the gap overlap task, which is a visual perception and attention task. You have a central kind of fixation point on screen, and then at some point a target will appear to left or the right side, and the participant has to look at the target. And the target appears either after the central fixation has disappeared or before the central fixation has disappeared. And so the idea behind this is, can you disengage your attention from the fixation point that you're looking at to then look at the target that appears on either side?
Yeah, and kind of the delay between those things.
Okay. Yeah. So it's much easier to explain when there's a diagram, but alas, does not work in the auditory medium. Yes, but it's kind of very commonly used psychometric task for studying this particular facet of attention. And I was doing some kind of mathematical modeling process to see if there was this relationship, because I was analyzing data that was collected by another group of researchers.
Yeah.
And there was, I'm trying to remember, there was a little bit of a relationship in some aspects of the AQ10, like some of the questions of the AQ10, but not all of them. And it's been a while.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
But yeah, I mean, it was a master's thesis project, so it was developed relatively quickly over the course of the year.
Yeah.
And there was kind of a lot of limitations on it, but what it did for me is that it really kind of ignited my passion for not just research, but autism research specifically.
Yeah, along the kind of neuroscience route and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Engaging those things together.
Yeah. And, taught me how to code, which is an incredibly useful skill.
I remember that discussion and you're like, oh yeah, C3 is a thing and people are talking about programming in different ways. And I don't know these things, but other people know these things.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But I remember coming out of finishing my dissertation, because I had to get an extension for my master's dissertation.
Yep.
Because there were delays getting the data and things like that, all kinds of stuff out of our control. But I remember getting to the end of it and actually feeling quite sad in some ways, because this had been my thing that I was working at for probably 3 solid months.
Yeah.
And I'd been on holiday with my family in the Lake District over the summer, and I'd had to kind of walk part way up the mountain to be able to get phone signal to then do data downloads onto my laptop so I could keep working on my thesis whilst we were in this like tiny 17th century farmhouse that had no Wi-Fi or data signal.
Yeah. So literally taken out your your life.
Yeah,
for that
exactly.
time. Yeah.
And coming out of that, I realized actually this is right. If I've been able to work at this research project more consistently, more reliably, and more healthily, crucially, than anything else I have done in years. And that was really the thing that kind of twigged it for me.
Yeah.
Was that actually not just academia, but autism research specifically. Because in my kind of earlier academic career when I was going through undergrad, I thought that I would go on to do clinical psychology.
Yeah.
And I'd applied for a master's program that had clinical placement and I didn't get onto it. So the master's program I ended up on was kind of a backup choice just because I panicked. I realized I had nothing else to do. And I'm so glad it did, because, a few months after finishing the end of my master's dis, I had formulated a PhD proposal and I'd sent it to a few people, one of whom was Catherine Jones, who is now my supervisor.
So what was the formulation? What was the PhD?
So the idea started off as
I can't remember the word.
proposal?
It
Yeah,
was
that's the
proposal.
one.
Yeah.
So the idea started off as I wanted to look at the neurological underpinnings of sensory sensitivity.
Yeah.
Knowing that each autistic person's, or not just autistic people, but many neurodivergent people have sensory issues, and everyone experiences it in a slightly different way. So I wanted to see if there were any consistencies in the underlying neurology of what's going on with people who are highly sensory sensitive versus people who are low sensory sensitive. So that was kind of the initial formulation that I came to Catherine with. And we had an online meeting. She said, I really like this idea. I haven't done any neuroimaging for a while, so I'm going to take this to a few other people in the school who might have more to say about it.
Yeah. See if it can be held and if it's the right place to be doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she emailed me back a few weeks later saying that she had spoken to some of her colleagues who were really interested in being involved with the project, who were at the time the head of school of psychology and the head of human electrophysiology in the Brain Imaging Centre. So like very senior people who had seen this proposal and thought that it was worth something. And having that email was such an amazing thing to receive, such an amazing email to receive, because I just thought there's something to this. And not just because I think it, because these people think it as well.
Yeah, it's been backed up by people who
know their stuff.
Yeah, because you can, it's one thing kind of going, oh, I think this is a good idea. But then you go, yeah, but I'm wrong all the time, aren't I? Or just self-doubt kind of stuff can creep in. But then when the people who you're like, okay, but I really respect their opinion come in, that adds so much weight to something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when someone's got so much experience and stuff.
Absolutely.
And they've probably done things around it. They go, oh, actually, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Let's go for that.
Yes. So the application process happened. We had to get funding and secured funding after a couple of attempts, had a interview process and all that kind of stuff. And managed to get through all of that on my first attempt, which is apparently quite uncommon. I've heard that a lot of people, kind of go several rounds of funding calls to try and get PhD funding. So I'm very privileged and very grateful for that. And yes, so I'm now year and a half into my PhD.
Yeah.
And
Of three
years of funding with a fourth year to finish writing my thesis if I need it. Hopefully I won't, but almost everyone does.
It's there just in case.
Just in
case.
So I'm still on the same track. I've narrowed it down a little bit to looking at auditory, visual, and then combined audio-visual sensory sensitivity. This is something that I found when doing literature searches, is that a lot of people, when they're looking at sensory sensitivity, will only look at one sense at a time. And that's usually because it's very difficult to do otherwise.
Yeah.
It's you're more than doubling the amount of things that you've got to consider, because if you're investigating auditory sensitivity, for example, you've got to think about, okay, what noises are you going to use as your stimuli? What paradigm are you going to use to assess all of this? How are you going to control for all of the extraneous variables? And then you add in another sensory modality.
Yeah.
And not only have you got to conceptualize all of those things for the visual modality, but then you've got to look at the intersection between the two.
Yes, because they both can exist in the same space very easily, especially those two major sense.
Yeah. But here we are. So I decided to stick with it. I haven't. I've got my experiments working. I've tested them in neurotypical populations just to check that we actually get the brain responses that we want, because that would be disappointing if we didn't.
Establish a kind of baseline.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm kind of winding up to start my my first major study within the next month or so.
What kind of experiments are you doing? What kind of ways are you gathering your data? Yeah,
so it's all based around this paradigm called the oddball paradigm, where you have a series of, in my case, noises. We'll stick with the auditory just to explain it. We've got a series of noises that are identical to each other. And then every so often you hear a noise that is different. And that is the oddball. And this oddball produces a very reliable, very consistent neural signature, a pattern of brain activity, which is called the oddball signal, the mismatch negativity. It has a number of different names. And there's evidence to suggest from previous research that this is different in autistic people.
Yep.
There's not a lot of consistency as to how it's different.
Yep. Which would make sense.
Which would make sense.
Because of all variability of
exactly.
experience.
So one of the issues that I found with previous research is that they do look at autism categorically rather than dimensionally. So they look at autism as you either have it or you don't. Whereas I think more modern understanding of autism is that actually there's so many different facets of it.
Yeah,
that
nuances of that.
Exactly. People can have different strengths, different weaknesses.
And especially in the sensory field, like you alluded to earlier.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't think it's as helpful to look at autism categorically, as in autistic versus non-autistic, as it is to look at kind of different sub-features of autism. And further to that, there's a fantastic, relatively new psychometric measure called the Comprehensive Autistic Trait Inventory, which kind of builds off the AQ. It fixes or aims to fix a lot of issues that the AQ had, aims to update it to more modern understandings of autism.
Yep.
And also has some really nice kind of sub themes that we can that we can pull into. We can look at.
Just briefly,
Yeah.
could you give some examples of how that? Because we were chatting a bit about it earlier, and it
Oh,
was
yeah,
really
sure.
interesting to hear about like how, like that we was doing that.
Yeah. So the original autism spectrum quotient was published in 2001 by Simon Baron-Cohen and his colleagues, and it was based on, at the time, the diagnostic criteria of autism at the time, which in 2001 was very different to the criteria that we have today. So there are some items in the original AQ that, in more recent analysis, have been found to be less meaningful than was originally conceptualized.
Yeah, and they're quite black and white as well, aren't they?
Yeah,
There's not much nuance.
So one of my pet peeve items, I guess you could call it, is there's a question that asks, would you rather go to a party or a museum?
Yeah. Depends on what each
Exactly. Yes.
and how I'm feeling that day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's so much nuance that the original AQ doesn't fully capture. And despite that, it's still used in a lot of kind of, as we've said before, initial screenings for autism, or a lot of research literature as well, because it is kind of the standard. And what it does is it is very good at differentiating between high likelihood of autism and low likelihood of autism.
Yeah.
Which is great if that's what you're using it for.
Yeah.
But if you're using it from a research perspective, trying to look at some of the subcharacteristics of autism, then that's where you start to potentially see some problems with reliability, and being able to reproduce across different participant groups.
Yeah, that nuanced data set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the CATI, the Comprehensive Autistic Trait Inventory, was developed to kind of address a lot of those things and update to our more modern understanding of autism. So that was released in, I think, 2021.
Yeah.
And I've run through it myself. It's so much nicer to run through as an autistic person.
Yeah.
I didn't find myself having anywhere near as many of those. But
no.
Can I write in next to the question?
Add the nuance of
Yes,
actually
but.
sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes 10, sometimes 1.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the measures that we're using, and we will use that to correlate with some of the brain activity, see if there are any differences on kind of the total scores, and autistic versus non-autistic. We'll do that comparison as well, but also on these sub-themes, these kind of sub-characteristics of autism. Is there a much higher correlation with I don't know, people that have greater struggles with attention, for example? Don't know if that will be the case, but as an example,
testing that is
but then we can also look at that in the non-autistic population as well, because we'll get the same questionnaire data from everyone.
Yeah,
we can see, actually, is this feature just unique to autistic people, or is this actually something that runs through the entire population, and it's just kind of elevated in autistic people, perhaps?
Yeah,
we don't know, but it'll be an interesting question to ask.
It's fascinating.
Yeah,
it's really, because even just going off that visual sensory difference between your thinking back to that master's thing, where the attention, the fixation point, and then looking up to the sides, the gap overlap.
Yes,
whether that and then visual, visual processing, visual sensory differences factor into that and stuff like things like this. There's so many nuances that we're still in really the infancy of
absolutely
this kind of research.
Yeah,
and it's so important. It's so exciting as well.
It's so cool.
As we get more and more data about this, we're going to have more and more information out there, dispel more and more preconceptions, misconceptions. More people we'll have a greater understanding of those nuances, and so we'll hopefully get caught earlier and have better support for those nuanced points. You know, like I grew up with light sensitive migraines. Realistically, a lot of that was probably to do with my kind of light sensitivity from a sensory point of view.
I mean, this is one of the things that I'm really passionate about, is that when you have these kind of predominantly mental disabilities, I don't like that term, but as opposed to physical health disabilities, I feel like there's a wider public perception of, well, you should just be able to work through it. And I feel like we do that to ourselves as well,
especially in our culture.
Yeah,
British
exactly.
culture.
we do that to ourselves as well. We don't, if we had a broken leg, we would take the time to rest. If we're burnt out, we're much less likely to actually take the time to rest and recover. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about is indicating to the research community and to general public that this goes beyond just being able to think differently. There are underlying biological and physiological differences between the autistic brain and the non-autistic brain. And there's research to suggest this as well. Again, consistency is an issue because you're looking at autistic versus non-autistic
individuals.
But there is that evidence out there that both structurally and functionally there are differences. And that's something I'm really passionate about. Because I think once you recognize that it's not just about thinking differently, then maybe we can be kinder to ourselves, and maybe the public can be kinder to us as well.
It's something that we keep coming back to, is that thing of neurodivergence is only a disability in a world that isn't built for it or doesn't work for it. And so if it's less kind of thinking of it as thinking differently, it's experiencing the world differently. So it's a real baseline thing of like the difference between like mental health and neurodivergence, for example, of like neurodivergence. I think this is just a broad sense, but like neurodivergence is your brain is fundamentally wired differently. Mental health stuff tends to be gained characteristics that are psychological set to them. And that difference, really getting that understanding out into the world, that real difference of actually my experience of the world is different to yours. And so we are coming at different pages. I can't understand how you experience the world. You can't understand how I experience the world. But it's if we raise that awareness of everybody experiences the world differently, and it can be really differently, and in ways that might outwardly seem subtle as well, then everybody's going to be lifted by that. And it's going to just improve the world.
Exactly.
No, it's absolutely brilliant what you're doing. And I think especially as you're autistic yourself. And do you reckon that plays into? Just to like finish up last question. Into how you are able to do this research and your interest around it.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. I mean,
in multiple ways.
So I definitely think that I've said before that I chose this path because I realized that this is one of the things I can do most sustainably. But I am also aware that there's a historic lack of autistic voices in autism research. Now, thankfully, that is now being corrected, not just by having more autism researchers, but also by a lot of academic journals requiring there to be community input from the autistic community. So even though I'm autistic and I've designed this process, this study, I'm still having autistic people who aren't affiliated with research come in and look at my study procedure, because they will have a different perspective, they'll have different experiences, and they will be able to help me make it more accessible. They'll be able to find pinch points in the process that I won't have considered because I'll be designing this with my academic hat on. And it's so important for autism research to be beneficial to the autistic community as well as to the academic community to have that input.
Yeah, that's brilliant because it adds validity to it, doesn't it? You know, doing stuff. It's that nothing about us without us as well.
Yes.
Lived experience angles, and that phrase that I seem to be saying a lot recently, that if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And so it's great that, you know, even in your research as an autistic person into autistic things, you're then required, actually. That factor is required to bring in other autistic people. It's great because it broadens it and it means it's going to be more applicable, more valid. And just, it's so exciting. I think we could talk about this for ages, but we can't go on too much longer. But I mean, we may be able to get you back later down the process, which might be quite interesting.
Yeah, if I'd be happy to come back and talk about what I found when I found something.
When you found some stuff. Oh, that's exciting. Nice to look forward to.
Yeah.
We will make sure that we put the Katie, that new assessment kind of quotient thingy on our website, www.lifeinthemind.co.uk. Which will be also findable on our socials and stuff. Because I mean, I'm going to go away and fiddle with that and go, ooh, that sounds really interesting because I don't think I've seen that. But thank you so much for coming in. That was really interesting, and I think really, really valuable stuff.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, that's it for this episode. Find us on Instagram at life.inthemind. Our other socials are linked in the bio. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Bye!